The settlement on Kravik 7 wasn't supposed to have a medical officer. Dr. Lyra James had been assigned as a xenobiologist, tasked with cataloging the planet's flora and documenting behavioral patterns of its apex predators, the Vrakti. She had not signed up to become the galaxy's most unlikely pediatrician. It started 3 cycles ago, when Rokan stumbled into her research camp. The young Vrakti cub, barely past his first molt, had dragged himself through the perimeter fence with a gash running along his flank. His obsidian scales were cracked, oozing a viscous purple fluid that Lyra's scanner identified as hemolymph. The cub's golden eyes, each the size of her fist, locked onto her with something between desperation and curiosity. Any sensible human would have retreated. The Vrakti were 8-foot-tall bipedal carnivores with retractable talons that could shred titanium plating. Their adults hunted in coordinated packs and had been known to take down colonial defense mechs. Their cubs, while smaller, possessed the same lethal equipment. Lyra grabbed her medical kit. "Easy there," she had murmured, approaching slowly. Rokan's throat rumbled, a warning growl that made her bones vibrate. But he didn't strike. Instead, he extended the wounded limb, trembling. She had worked quickly, using antiseptic foam designed for silicon-based life forms and synthetic tissue patches that bonded to his scales. The cub had watched her every movement, his head tilting with an intelligence that made her skin prickle. When she finished, Rokan had done something unprecedented. He pressed his scarred snout against her palm, a gesture her database later identified as a Vrakti sign of gratitude. Then he vanished into the jungle. Lyra thought that would be the end of it. 2 days later, Rokan returned. This time, he wasn't alone. 7 cubs emerged from the tree line, each sporting various injuries, scratches, sprains, what appeared to be a broken crest horn. They lined up outside her habitat dome like patients at a clinic, eerily silent except for the occasional chirp of communication. Rokan stood at the front, his wound cleanly healed. He gestured to his companions, then to Lyra, then mimicked her earlier movements, the application of bandages, the scanning motion of her medical tricorder. They thought she was a healer. A medicine keeper? Their word, roughly translated, was pain ender. What else could she do? She treated them all. The cubs became regulars. They learned her schedule, appearing precisely when she took her afternoon equipment checks. Rokan appointed himself their spokesperson, organizing them into orderly queues. He even began bringing offerings, strange crystalline fruits that her scanner confirmed were edible. If toothachingly sweet, Lyra documented everything, knowing her superiors would never believe the reports. Humanity's first contact protocols were built on assumptions of aggression or indifference from apex predators. No one had predicted this. The breakthrough came when Rokan arrived one evening without injury but carrying something in his clawed hands, a Vrakti adult's talon, ceremonially painted. He placed it at her feet, then vocalized a complex series of clicks and growls. Her translator struggled before spitting out, "Elder Mother requests presence. Honor meeting. You..." The device paused, recalibrating. "Pack healer now." Lyra's blood ran cold. She was being summoned to the clan's central den. Humans who entered Vrakti territory didn't return. But looking at Rokan's expectant face, at the trust in those predatory eyes, she found herself nodding. The den was a cathedral of bone and stone, carved into a cliff face that overlooked the jungle canopy. Hundreds of Vrakti adults filled the space, their scales reflecting firelight in a kaleidoscope of obsidian and crimson. At the center sat the matriarch, Elder Mother Threxis, twice the size of her warriors, bearing scars that told of decades of survival. Lyra stood before her, acutely aware that she was the softest thing in the room. Threxis studied her for a long moment, then spoke. The translator rendered her voice as aged and authoritative. "You heal cubs. Expect nothing. Take nothing. Why?" It was the simplest question with the most complex answer. Lyra thought of Earth, of veterinarians who treated strays, of doctors who worked in war zones, of the fundamental human compulsion to fix what was broken. "Because they were hurt," she said finally, "and I could help." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Threxis rose, her massive frame unfolding like a storm-given flesh. She approached Lyra, close enough that her breath, hot and smelling of sulfur, washed over the human. "No prey thinks this way," Threxis rumbled. "You are Strange prey, soft shell, but... Her lip curled, revealing rows of crystalline teeth. You are ours now. Pack healer. You mend. We protect. It wasn't a request. Within a week, adult Vrakthi began appearing at her dome. Warriors with combat injuries, hunters with parasitic infections, elders with joint deterioration. Rokan managed them all with surprising efficiency, maintaining appointment schedules using a system of carved stones that indicated time slots. The young cub had become her de facto clinic administrator. Lyra requested additional medical supplies. Command, baffled by her reports, sent them anyway, along with a xenomedicine specialist and 2 anthropologists who spent their first week simply staring at the orderly queue of apex predators waiting for physical examinations. The Vrakthi, in turn, began sharing their knowledge: herbal compounds that accelerated healing, fungal treatments that cured infections human medicine couldn't touch. A symbiotic relationship emerged, built not on diplomacy or trade agreements, but on the simple act of one being helping another in pain. 6 months after Rokan's first visit, the Galactic Council officially recognized the Kravik 7 settlement as humanity's first successful integration colony. Diplomats and xenospecialists flooded in, eager to understand how a single human had accomplished what centuries of first contact doctrine said was impossible. They all asked Lyra the same question: how did you do it? She would always glance at Rokan, now nearly adult-sized, who continued to manage the ever-growing clinic with the precision of a born administrator. The young Vrakthi had learned basic human standard and wore a medical band on his arm that Lyra had given him, a symbol of his position. I didn't do anything special, she would say. I just treated some kids with scraped knees. But in the quiet moments when Rokan sat beside her as she worked, occasionally pressing his scarred snout against her shoulder in that gesture of gratitude, Lyra understood the truth that humanity had always known, but the galaxy was only learning. Compassion was the most powerful weapon any species could wield, and sometimes the simple act of caring for the young could change the fate of worlds.